We can start with Mangalacharan.
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Srila Rupa Goswami states that although Lord Krishna is the reservoir of unlimited pleasure and the greatest leader of all, he is still dependent upon his devotees in three ways. According to emotional status of the devotee, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is appreciated in three ways: as the most perfect, as very perfect, and as perfect. When he exhibits himself in fullness, he is appreciated by great learned scholars as most perfect. When he exhibits himself in lesser degrees, he is called very perfect, and when he exhibits still less, he is called perfect. This means that Krishna is appreciated for 3 degrees of perfection. These 3 degrees of perfection are specially exhibited as follows. When he is in Goloka Vrindavan, his different aspects can be analyzed according to the exhibition of his timeless, limitless variety of pastimes, and as such, there is no contradiction.
He is in Golok Vrindavan, his transcendental qualities are exhibited as most perfect. When he is in Mathura, he exhibits his qualities as very perfect. And when he is in Dwarka, he exhibits his qualities as perfect. Krishna's personality is analyzed as Dhiro Datta, Dhira Lalita, Dhira Prashanta, and Dhiro Dhata. If one asks how a personality can be beheld in the four quite opposing ways, the answer is that the Lord is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities and activities. Therefore, his different aspects can be analyzed according to the exhibition of his limitless varieties of pastimes, and such there is no contradiction. A Dhiradatta is naturally very grave, gentle, forgiving, merciful, determined, humble, highly qualified, calaverous, and physically active. In this connection, the following statement is given by Indra, the king of heaven, is very significant. My dear Lord, I admit that I have committed great offenses unto you, but I cannot express my feelings of regret, being bewildered at seeing your extraordinary spirit, your endeavor to protect your devotees, your determination, your steadiness in lifting the great hill of Govardhana, your beautiful bodily features, and your astonishing characteristics of being pleased simply by accepting the prayers of your devotees and offenders. The above statement by the King of Heaven is an corroboration of Krishna as being Dhirodatta. Many learned scholars have agreed also to accept Lord Ramachandra as Dhirodatta, but all of Lord Ramachandra's qualities are also included in the character of Lord Krishna.
A person is called Lalita if he is naturally very funny, always in full youthfulness, expert in joking and free from all anxieties. Such a Dhira Lalita personality is generally found to be domesticated and very submissive to his lover. This Dhira Lalita trait in the personality of Krishna is described by Yagna Patni, the wife of one of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices in Vrindavan. She tells her friends, one day, Srimati Radharani, accompanied by her associates, was taking rest in her garden, and at that time, Lord Sri Krishna arrived in that assembly. After sitting down, he began to narrate very impudently about his previous night's pastimes with Radharani. While he was speaking in that way, Radharani became very embarrassed. She was feeling ashamed and was absorbed in thought, and and Krishna Krishna took the opportunity to mark her breasts with different kinds of tilak. Krishna proved himself to be a very expert in that art. In this way, Krishna, as Dhira Lalita, was enjoying his youthfulness proclivities in the company of the gopis. Generally, those who are expert in writing dharma choose to call Cupid the ideal Dhira Lalita, but we can more perfectly find in the personality of Krishna all characteristics of Dhira Lalita.
Dheer Prashant. A person who is very peaceful, forbearing, considerate, and obliging is called Dheer Prashant. This Dheer Prashant is a trait of Krishna was exhibited in his dealings with the Pandavas. On account of the Pandavas' faithful devotion to the Lord, he agreed to become their charioteer and their advisor, their friend, their messenger, and sometimes their bodyguard. Such is an example as a result of devotional service towards Lord Vishnu. When Krishna was speaking to Maharaj Yudhishthir about religious principles, he demonstrated himself to be a great learned scholar, but because he accepted the position of younger cousin to Yudhishthir, he was speaking in a very gentle tone, which enhanced his beautiful bodily features. The movement of his eyes and the mode of his speech proved that he was very expert in giving moral instructions. Sometimes Maharaj Yudhishthir is also accepted by learned scholars as Veer Prashant.
Dhirodhata, a person who is very envious, proud, easily angered, restless, and complacent is called Dhirodhata by learned scholars. Such qualities were visible in the character of Lord Krishna. Because he was writing letter to Kalyavan, Krishna addressed himself as a sinful frog. In this letter, in his letter, Krishna advised Kalyavan that he should immediately go to find some dark well for his residence because there was black snake named Krishna who was very eager to devour all such sinful frogs. Krishna reminded Kalyavan that he could turn all the universes into ashes simply by looking at them. The above statement by Krishna seems apparently to be of an envious nature, but according to the different pastimes, places, and the times, this quality is accepted as a great characteristic. Krishna's Dhirodhata qualities have been accepted great because Krishna uses them only to protect his devotees. In other words, even undesirable traits may also be used in the exchange of devotional service. Sometimes Bhima, the second brother of the Pandavas, is also described as Dhirodhata. Once, while fighting with a demon who was appearing as a deer, Krishna challenged him in this way: "I have come before you as a great elephant named Krishna. You must leave the battlefield accepting defeat, or else there is death awaiting you." This challenging spirit of Krishna is not contradictory to his sublime character because he is the supreme being. Everything is possible in his character. There is a nice statement in the Purva Puran about these contradictory traits of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated that the Supreme Person is neither very fat nor very thin. He is always transcendental to material qualities, yet his bodily luster is blackish. His eyes are reddish and he's all powerful, and he is equipped with all different kinds of opulences. Contradictory traits in Krishna's person are not at all surprising. One should not consider the characteristics of Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, to be actually contradictory. One should try to understand the traits of Krishna from authorities and try to understand how these characteristics are employed by the personality of the by the supreme will of the Lord.
In the Mahavara Puran, it is confirmed that the transcendental bodies of Supreme Personality of Godhead and his expansions are all existing eternally. Such bodies are never material. They are completely spiritual and full of knowledge. They are reservoirs of all transcendental qualities. In the Yamal Tantra, there is a statement that because the personality of Godhead because the personality of Godhead and his expanded bodies are always full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. They are always free from the 18 kinds of material contaminations: illusion, fatigue, uh, ra- roughness, material lust, restlessness, pride, envy, violence, disgrace, exhaustion, untruth, anger, hankering, dependence, desire to lord over the universe, seeing duality and cheating. Regarding all of the above mentioned statements, it is understood that the Mahavishnu is the source of all incarnations in the material world. But because of his greater extraordinary opulence, we can understand that the son of Nanda Maharaj is the source of the Mahavishnu also. Uh, this is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, wherein it is stated, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Govinda, whose partial representation is the Mahavishnu. The gigantic form of the Mahavishnu is the source of generation for innumerable universes. Universes. Innumerable universes are coming out of his exhaling breath, and the same universes are going back in with his inhaling breath. This Mahavishnu is also a plenary portion of of a portion of Krishna."
Chapter 24. Further traits of Sri Krishna. After describing the different opulences of Krishna, Srila Rupa Goswami tries to further describe the transcendental beauties and the qualities of the Lord as decorated, enjoying, pleasing, dependable, steady, and predominating. He is also described as meticulous dresser and a magnanimous personality. They are generally considered to be the qualities of the great personalities. Decorated. It is said that a person is great if he is decorated with the qualities of being very merciful toward the unfortunate, very powerful, superior, chivalrous, enthusiastic, expert, and truthful. These decorations were manifested in the character of Krishna during his Govardhan Leela. At that time, the whole tract of land of Vrindavan was being disturbed by the rains sent by Indra, as described elsewhere. At first, Krishna thought, let me retaliate against the Phoenicians of Indra, but by destroying his heavenly kingdom. But later on, when he thought of the insignificance of the king of heaven, Krishna changed his mind and felt merciful toward Indra. No one is able to tolerate the wrath of Krishna. So instead of retaliating against Indra, he simply showed his compassion for his friends in Vrindavan by lifting the Govardhan hill to protect them.
Enjoying. When a person is seen to be always happy and is accustomed to speak smilingly, he is considered to be in the mode of enjoyment. Thus, this trait was found in Krishna when he appeared at the sacrificial arena of King Kamsa. It is described that the lotus-eyed Krishna entered among the wrestlers without being impolite to them, glanced over them with a determination, and to seemed to them just like an elephant attacking some plants. Even while speaking to them, Krishna was still smiling, and in this way he stood valiantly upon the wrestling days. Pleasing. When one's characteristics are very sweet and desirable, his personality is called pleasing. An example of Krishna's pleasing nature is thus described in Srimad Bhagavatam. One day, while Krishna was awaiting the arrival of Srimati Radharani by the bank of Yamuna, he began to make a garland of Kadamba flowers. In meantime, Srimati Radharani appeared there, and at that time, Murari, Krishna, the enemy of Mura, glanced over Radharani very sweetly.
Dependable. Any person who is reliable in all circumstances is called dependable. In this concept, in this connection, Rup Goswami says that even the demons were relying upon the dependability of Krishna because they were confident that Krishna would never attack them without due cause. Therefore, with faith and confidence, they used to live with their doors wide open. And the demigods, although afraid of the demons, were confident of the protection of Krishna. Therefore, even in the midst of danger, they were engaged in supportive activities. Persons who have never undergone the reformatory ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedas were confident that Krishna would accept only faith and devotion. And so they were engaged in Krishna consciousness and were freed from all anxieties. In other words, all kinds of men, from the demigods down to the uncultured, can rely on the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Steady. A person who is not disturbed even in the situation of reverses is called steady. This steadiness was observed in Krishna in connection with his chastising the demons known as Bana. Bana. The Bana demon had many hands. And Krishna was cutting off these hands one after another. This Bana was a great devotee of Lord Shiva and the goddess Durga. Thus, when Bana was being chastised, Lord Shiva and Durga became very furious at Krishna. But Krishna did not care for them.
Predominating. A person who can affect the mind of everyone is called predominating. As far as Krishna's predomination is concerned, in the 10th canto, 43rd chapter, verse 17 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is described thus by Shukadeva Goswami to King Parikshit. My dear king, Krishna is a thunderbolt to the rescuers. To the common man, he is most beautiful human being. To the young girls, he is just like Cupid. To the cowherd man and woman, he is the most intimate relative. To the empire's kings, he is the supreme ruler. To his parents, Nanda and Yashoda, he is just a baby. To Kansa, the king of Bhoj, he is death personified. To the bull and stupid, to the dull and stupid, he is just like a stone. To the yogis, he is the supreme absolute truth. And to the Vrishnis, he is the supreme personality of Godhead. In such a predominating position, Krishna appeared in that arena, although with his older brother Balaram. When Krishna, the reservoir of all mallows, was present in the arena of Kamsa, he appeared differently to the different persons who were relating to him in different mallows. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that he appears to every person according to one's relationship with him. Sometimes learned scholars describe predominating to mean a person intolerant of being neglected. This peculiarity in Krishna was visible when Kamsa was insulting Maharaj Nanda. Vasudev was asking Krishna's assistance in killing Kamsa, and Krishna was glancing over Kamsa with long eyes, just like a prostitute, and was preparing to jump at the king. Meticulous dresser. A person who is very fond of dressing himself is called Lalit or meticulous dresser. This characteristic was found in Krishna in two ways. Sometimes he used to decorate Srimati Radharani with various marks, and sometimes he was preparing to kill demons like Arishtasur. He would take charge to arrange his bed very nicely.
Magnanimous. Person who can give themselves to anyone are called magnanimous. No one could be more magnanimous than Krishna because he is always prepared to give himself completely to his devotee, even to one who is not a devotee. Krishna in his form of Lord Chaitanya is prepared to give himself to and to grant deliverance. Although Krishna is independent of everyone, out of his causeless mercy he is dependent upon Garga Rishi for religious instruction. For learning the military art, he is dependent on Sat, uh, Satyaki, and for good counsel, he is dependent upon his friend Uddhava. Chapter 25, Devotees of Krishna. A person who is always absorbed in Krishna consciousness is called a devotee of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami says that all the transcendental qualities discussed previously are also found in the devotees of Krishna. The devotees of Krishna can be classified into two groups: those who are cultivating devotional service in order to enter into the transcendental kingdom, and those who are already in the perfectional stage of devotional service. A person who has attained the stage of attraction for Krishna and who is not freed from the material impulse but who has qualified himself to enter into the kingdom of God is called a sadhaka. Sadhaka means who is cultivating devotional and Krishna consciousness. The description of such a devotee is found in the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 46 of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said there that a person who is unflinching, who has unflinching faith and love for the personality of Godhead, who is in friendship with devotees of Krishna, and who is very merciful to the ignorant, raising them to the standard of devotional service, and who is uninterested in non-devotees, is considered to be situated in the position of cultivating devotional service.
When one is found shedding tears by hearing of the pastimes of the Lord, it is to be understood that the blazing fire of material existence will be extinguished by such watering. When there is shivering of the body and hairs of the body stand up, it is to be understood that the devotee is nearing perfection. An example of sadhaka cultivating devotional service is Bilva Mangal Thakur. When a devotee is never tired of executing devotional service and is always engaged in Krishna conscious activities, constantly relishing the transcendental mellows in relationship with Krishna, he's called perfect. This perfectional stage can be achieved in two ways. One may achieve the stage of perfection by gradual progress in devotional service, or one may become perfect by causeless mercy of Krishna, even though he has not executed all the details of that devotional service.
There is the following nice statement in the third canto, 15th chapter, verse 25 of Srimad Bhagavatam, describing a devotee who achieves perfection by regularly executing devotional service. A person who is freed from the false egotism of material existence or an advanced mystic is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God, known as Vaikuntha. Such a mystic becomes so joyful by constant execution of the regulative principles of devotional service that he thereby achieves the special favor of the Supreme Lord. Yamraj, the mighty superintendent of death, is afraid to go near such a devotee, so we can imagine the potential of advanced devotional service, especially when devotees sit together and engage in talking of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those devotees express their feelings in such a way that they automatically feel melt with ecstasy, and many transcendental symptoms become manifested in their bodies. Anyone desiring advancement in devotional service must follow in the footsteps of such devotees. Prahlad Maharaj said that no one can attain the perfectional stage of devotional service without bowing down before exalted devotees. Learned sages like Markandeya Rishi attained perfection in devotional service simply by executing such regulative principles of service.
A person's achieving perfection in devotional service simply by the causeless mercy of the Lord is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in connection with the Brahmanas and their wives who were engaged in performing yajna or sacrifice. When the wives of the Brahmanas were favored by Lord Krishna and immediately attained the ecstasy love of Godhead. Their husband said, "How wonderful it is that although these women have undertaken no reformatory performances, such as accepting the sacred thread, resided in the monasteries of the spiritual master, have not observed the strict principles of celibacy, have not undergone any austerities, and have not philosophized upon the observance of ritualistic ceremonies, they still have attained the favor of Krishna, which is aspired after even by great mystics. How wonderful it is that these women have attained such perfection, while we, although Brahmanas who have performed all the reformatory activities, cannot attain to this advanced stage." This is a similar statement by Narad addressed to Shukdev Goswami. "My dear Shukdev Goswami, you never took the trouble to reside under the care of a spiritual master, and yet you have attained such a great status of transcendental knowledge. You never took the trouble to undergo severe austerities, and still, how wonderful it is that you have been situated in the most perfect stage of the love of Godhead.
Shukdev Goswami and the wives of the Brahmanas performing yajna are vivid examples of devotees who achieved the perfectional stage of devotional service by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Eternal perfection. Persons who have achieved eternal blissful life exactly on the level of Sri Krishna and who are able to attract Lord Krishna by their transcendental loving service are called eternally perfect. The technical name is Nitya Siddha. There are two classes of living entities, namely Nitya Siddha and Nitya Bhatta. The distinction is that the Nitya Siddhas are eternally Krishna conscious without any forgetfulness, whereas the Nitya Bhattas or eternally conditioned souls are forgetful of their relationship with Krishna. The position of the Nitya Siddhas is explained in the Padma Puran in connection with the narration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Satyabhama Devi. The Lord tells Satyabhama, "My dear Satyabhama Devi, I have descended to this earthly planet by the request of Lord Brahma and other demigods. Those who are born into the family of Yadu are all my eternal associates. My dear wife, you should not consider my associates that my associates are separated from me. They are my personal expansions, and as such, you must know that they are almost as powerful as I am. Because of their transcendental qualities, they are very, very dear to me. And as I am very, very dear to them. Anyone who becomes exhilarated by hearing the pastimes of Lord Krishna when he was present on this earth with his associates is to be understood as Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect.
In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 32 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this statement: "How wonderful are the fortunate residents of Vrindavan, such as Nanda and other cowherd men, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahma, has actually become their intimate friend." A similar statement is there in the 10th canto, 26th chapter, verse 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Krishna lifted Govardhan hill, and the cowherd men, under the protection of Lord Krishna, became struck with wonder and went to Nanda Maharaj and inquired from them, "My dear Nanda Maharaj, how is it possible that we are so intensely attached to Krishna and that Krishna is so affectionately attached to us? Does it mean that he is the super soul of everyone?" All the residents of Vrindavan and Dwarka, namely the cowherd men and the members of the Yadu family, are eternally perfect devotees of the Lord. As the Lord descends by his causeless mercy upon this planet, so, in order to help in the pastimes of the Lord, these devotees came here. They are not ordinary living entities or conditioned souls. They are ever liberated persons, associates of the personality of Godhead. And just as Lord Krishna behaves like an ordinary man, when he descends to this planet. So the members of Yadu dynasty and the residents of Vrindavan execute activities just like an ordinary man, but they are not ordinary men. They are as liberated as Lord Krishna himself.
In the Padma Puran Uttarakhand section, it is stated, just as Lord Ramachandra descends along with Lakshmana and an expansion of Sankarshan and Bharat, an expansion of Pradyumna, so the members of the Yadu dynasty and the cowherd men of Vrindavan also descend with Krishna in order to join with the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. When the Supreme Lord returns to his eternal abode, his associates return with him to their respective places. As such, these ever liberated Vaishnavas are not bound by the material laws of birth and death. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself, his birth, deeds, and activities are all transcendental. Similarly, the birth, deeds, and activities of the associates of the Lord are also transcendental, and it is an offense to consider oneself to be Krishna. So it is offensive. So it is and as it is offense that um, as as it is an offense to consider oneself to be Krishna, so it is offensive to consider oneself to be Yashoda, Nanda, or any other associate of the Lord. We should always remember that they are transcendental, they are never conditioned souls. It is described that Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, has 64 transcendental qualities, and all are ever liberated souls who accompany the Lord have the first 55 of the qualities without any doubt. Such devotees are related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in any of the five transcendental manners, namely neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. These relationships with the Lord are eternal, and therefore Nitya Siddha devotees do not have to strive to attain perfectional stage by executing regulative devotional practices principles. They are eternally qualified to serve Krishna.
Chapter 26, Stimulation for Ecstatic Love. Some things that are something that give impetus or stimulation to ecstatic love of Krishna and his transcendental qualities, his uncommon activities, his smiling features, his apparel, his garlands, his flute, his buffalo horn, his leg bells, his conch shell, his footprints, his places of the pastimes such as Vrindavan, his favorite plant, Tulsi, his devotee, and the periodical occasions for remembering him. One such occasion of remembrance is Ekadashi, which comes twice a month on the 11th day of the moon, both waning and waxing. On that day, all the devotees remain fasting throughout the night and continuously chant the glories of the Lord. Krishna's transcendental qualities, his uncommon activities, and his smile. As far as Krishna's transcendental qualities are concerned, they can be divided into three groups: qualities pertaining to his transcendental body, qualities pertaining to his transcendental speech, and qualities pertaining to his transcendental mind. Krishna's age, his transcendental bodily features, his beauty, and his mind mildness are qualities pertaining to his body. There is no difference between Krishna and his body, and therefore the transcendental features pertaining to his body are the same as Krishna himself. But because these qualities stimulate the devotees' ecstatic love, and they have been analyzed separate cause of that love. To be attracted by the qualities of Krishna means to be attracted by Krishna himself, because there is no real distinction between Krishna and his qualities. Krishna's name is also Krishna. Krishna's fame is also Krishna. Krishna's encourage is also encourage is also Krishna, and Krishna and everything related with Krishna that gives stimulation to love of Krishna are all Krishna. But for our understanding, these items may be considered separately.
Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. Therefore, the impetuses to love of Krishna, although seemingly different, are not actually distinct from Krishna himself. In the technical Sanskrit terms, such qualities as Krishna's name and fame are accepted both as reservoirs of and as stimulation for love of Krishna. Krishna's age is considered in three periods. From his appearance day to the end of his fifth year is called Kaumar. From the beginning of the sixth year up to the end of the 10th year is called Paugand, and from the 11th to the end of the 15th year is called Kishore. After the beginning of the 16th year, Krishna is called a Yauvan or youth, and this continues with no change. As far as Krishna's transcendental pastimes are concerned, they are mostly executed during the Kaumar, Vakant, and Kishore periods. His affectionate pastimes with his parents are executed during his Kaumar age. His friendship with the cowherd boys is exhibited during the Vakant period, and his friendship with the gopis is exhibited during the age of Kishore. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan are finished by the end of the 15th year, and then he is transferred to Mathura and Dwaraka, where all other pastimes are performed. Sri Rupa Goswami gives a vivid description of Krishna as the reservoir of all pleasure in his Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Here are some parts of that description.
Krishna's Kishore age may be divided into three parts. The beginning of his Kishore age, that is, at the beginning of his 11th year, the luster of his body becomes so bright that it becomes an impetus for ecstatic love. Similarly, there are reddish borders around his eyes and a growth of soft hair on his body. In describing this early age of his Kishore age, Kundalata, one of the residents of Vrindavan, said to her friend, "My dear friend, I have just seen an extraordinary beauty appearing in a person of Krishna. His blackish bodily hue appears just like an Indranila jewel. There are reddish signs on his body. There are reddish signs on his eyes, and small hairs are coming out on his body. The appearance of these symptoms has made him extraordinarily beautiful. In this connection, in the 10th canto, 21st chapter, verse 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami tells King Parikshit, "My dear king, I shall try to describe how the minds of the gopis became absorbed in the thought of Krishna. The gopis would meditate on Krishna's dressing himself just like a dancing actor and entering the forest of Vrindavan, making the ground of his footprints. They meditated on Krishna's having a helmet with a peacock feather and wearing earrings on his ear and his yellow gold colored garments covered with jewels and pearls. They also meditated on Krishna's blowing flute, and on his and on all the cowherd boys singing the glories of the Lord. And that is the description of the meditation that the gopis used to perform.
Sometimes the gopis would think about his soft nails, his moving eyebrows, and his teeth, which were cat, colored from chewing pan. One description was given by a gopi to a friend. My dear friend, just see how the enemy of Agha has assumed such wonderful features. His brows are just like the bow of Cupid, and they are moving just as though they were dancing. The tips of his nails are so soft. It is as if they were dried bamboo leaves. His teeth are reddish, and so it appears that he has assumed a feature of anger. Uh, Under the circumstances, where is the chance for a young girl not to be attracted by such beautiful features and not to be afraid of becoming a victim to such beauty? Krishna's attractive features are also described by Vrinda the Gopi, after whom Vrindavan was named. She told Krishna, "My dear Madhav, your newly invented smile has so captivated the hearts of the gopis that they are simply unable to express themselves. As such, they have become bewildered and will not talk with others. All of these gopis have become so affected that it is as if they had offered three sprinkles of water upon their lives. In other words, they have given up all hope for their living condition. According to the Indian system, when a person is dead, there is a sprinkling of water on the body. Thus, the statement of Vrinda shows that the gopis were so enchanted by the beauty of Krishna that because they could not express their minds, they had decided to commit suicide.
When Krishna arrived at the age of 13 to 14 years, his two arms and the chest assumed to be unspeakable beauty, and his whole form because became simply enchanting. When Krishna attained 13 years of age, his two thighs were challenging the trunks of elephants. His rising chest was trying to come to peace talks to the doors of jewel, and two arms were minimizing the value of the bolts found on the doors. Who can describe the wonderful bodily beauty of these features of Krishna? The special beauty of Krishna's body was his mild smiling, his restless eyes, and his uh, world enchanting songs. These are the features of this age. There is a statement in the connection that Krishna, on arriving at this age, manifested such beautiful bodily features that his restless eyes became the playthings of Cupid, and by and his mild smile resembled the newly grown lotus flower. The enchanting vibration of his songs became a great impediment to young girls who were supposed to remain chaste and faithful to their husbands. At this age, Krishna enjoyed the Rasa Leela, exhibiting his powerful joking with the cowherd girls and enjoying their company in the bushes of the gardens by the bank of Yamuna.
In this connection, there is the following statement. Through the whole tract of land known as Vrindavan, there were footprints of Krishna and the gopis, and in some places peacock feathers were strewn about. In some places there were nice beddings in the bushes of the Vrindavan gardens, and in some places there were piles of dust due to the group dancing of Govind and the gopis. There are some of the features, these are some of the features which are due to the different pastimes invented by Sri Krishna in the place known as Vrindavan. There is the following statement by one gopi describing Krishna's attractive feature during this age. My dear friends, just see how all of a sudden in the sky of Krishna there is a beautiful rising sun, and how this rising sun is minimizing the rays of our chastity moon. Our attraction for Krishna is so intense that it is drying up the lotus flower of our discrimination, and we are losing our senses and deciding whether we shall continue as chaste women or be victimized by the beauty of Krishna. My dear friend, I think that we have lost all hope of life. Wow, such a beautiful analogy. In the Kishore age, beginning from the 11th year and continuing up to the end of 15th year, Krishna's arms, legs, and thighs became marked with the three divisional lines. At that time, Krishna's chest challenged a hill of Marakat jewels. His arms challenged the pillars of the Indranils well. The three lines of his waist challenged the waves of river Yamuna, and his thighs challenged the beautiful bananas. When Gopi said, with all these exquisite features of his body, Krishna is too extraordinarily beautiful, and therefore I am always thinking of him to protect me, because he is the killer of all demons. The idea expressed in these statements is that gopis were comparing their attraction for Krishna to an attack by demons, and to counteract their attraction for the beauty of Krishna, they were also turning to Krishna, hopefully, because he is the killer of all demons. In other words, they were perplexed because no one hand because on one hand they were attracted by the beauty of Krishna, and on the other they needed Krishna to drive away the demon of such attraction. Wow.
The Kishore age can be translated as adolescence, and at the end of this period, all the gopis said, Krishna is the killer of the attraction of the Cupid, and as such, he distributes the patience of all newly married girls. Krishna's bodily features have become so exquisite that it is as they were all manifesting an artistic sense of that highest sort. His dancing eyes have dimmed the, the the brilliance of the most expert dancer, and so there is no longer any comparison to the beauty of Krishna. Learned scholars therefore describe the features of his body at this time as Nava, newly invented youthfulness. At this stage of Krishna's bodily features, the conjugal love affairs with the gopis and the similar pastimes become very prominent. There are six features of conjugal loving affairs called peacemaking, picking a quarrel, going to meet one's lover, sitting together, separation, and support. Lord Krishna expanded an empire of these six features, and of which he was the ruling prince. Somewhere he was picking quarrels with young girls. Sometimes he was scratching them with the nail of parrots. And somewhere he was busy going to visit the gopis, and somewhere he was negotiating through cowherd friends to take shelter of the gopis. Some of the gopis addressed him thus, Dear Krishna, because of your adolescent age, you have just become the spiritual master of these young girls, and you are teaching them to whisper among themselves. You are teaching them to offer solemn prayers, as well as training them to cheat their husband and to join you in the gardens at night without caring for the without caring for the instructions of their superiors. You are enthusing some of the you are enthusing them by the vibration of your enchanting flute, and as their teacher, you are teaching them all the intricacies of the loving affairs.
It is said that even when Krishna was a boy of 5, he manifested such youthful energies, but learned scholars do not explain them because of the absence of suitable age. Krishna was beautiful because every part of his body was perfectly arranged without any defect. Such perfect bodily features of Krishna are described as follows. My dear enemy of Kamsa, your broad eyes, your rising chest, your two pillar-like arms, and the thin middle portion of your body are always enchanting to every lotus-eyed beautiful girl. The ornaments of the on the beauty of Krishna, on the body of Krishna, were not actually enhancing his beauty, but the reverse. The ornaments were beautified by Krishna. A person is called mild when when he cannot even bear the touch of the most soft thing. It is described that every part of Krishna's body was so soft that even at the touch of newly grown leaves, the color of the touched part of the skin would change. At this Kishore age, Krishna's endeavors were always bent toward arranging the Rasadangs as well as toward killing the demons in the forest of Vrindavan. While Krishna was engaged in enjoyment with the boys and girls within the forest of Vrindavan, Kamsa used to send his associates to kill Krishna, and Krishna would show his prowess by killing them. Krishna's apparel and the garlands. Generally, there are four kinds of garlands on the body of Krishna: his shirt, turban, belt, and wearing garments. In Vrindavan, he used to put on reddish garments with a golden shirt on his body and a orange turban on his head. The different kinds of belts combined with his enchanting smile used to always increase the transcendental bliss of his associates. The dress of Krishna is described as gorgeous, as a baby elephant is sometimes dressed in colorful clothing, so Krishna's gorgeousness was manifested by decoration with such colorful clothing on the different parts of his body.
Akalpa refers to the texture of Krishna's hair, his nicely dressed body, anointed with sandalwood pulp and decorated with flower garlands, his telaka and his chewing pan. Krishna was decorated constantly in his Akalpa process. Krishna's hair was sometimes decorated with flowers placed on the middle of his head, or else it was reaching down to his back. In, in this way, Krishna dressed his hair differently at different times. As for the ointment of his body, the pulp of sandalwood generally appeared to be white, and when it was mixed with the saffron dye, it appeared to be yellow. Krishna used to put a Vaijanti garland around his neck. This Vaijanti garland is made of flowers of at least five different colors. Such a garland was always long enough to touch Krishna's knees or feet. Beside his garland of flowers, there were other kinds of flower garlands too. Sometimes decorating his head, sometimes hanging around his neck and chest. Artistic paintings with sandalwood pulp and colored sandalwood were also to be found on the body of Krishna. One gopi addressed her friend and began to praise the bodily features of Krishna. She praised his blackish complexion, the reddish color of the chewing pan, enhancing his beauty 100 times, the curling hair on his head, the kumkuma, uh, red spots on his body, and the tilaka on his forehead. Kumkuma is a sweetly flavored reddish powder that is thrown on the bodies of worshipable persons.
His helmet, his earrings, his necklace, his four garments, the bangles on his head, the rings on his fingers, his ankle bells, and his flute. These are the different features of Krishna's ornaments. Krishna, the enemy of Agha, always looked beautiful with his incomparable helmet, his earrings made up of diamonds, his necklace of pearls, his bangles, his embroidered garments, and the beautiful rings on on his fingers. Krishna is sometimes called Vanamali. One means forest and Mali means gardener. So Vanmali means to one who extensively uses flowers and garlands on different parts of his body. Krishna was dressed like this not only in Vrindavan but also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Seeing such colorful dress and garlands of different colors of different flowers, some great sages prayed. Lord Krishna was going to the battlefield of Kurukshetra not to fight, but to grace all of the devotees with his presence. Hari Bol. Krishna's flute. As far as his flute is concerned, it is said that the vibration of his wonderful instrument was able to break the meditation of the greatest sages. Krishna was challenging Cupid by by advertising his transcendental glories all over the world. There are three kinds of flutes used by Krishna. One is called Venu, one is called Murali, and the other is called third one is called Vamshi. Venu is very small, not more than 6 inches long, with six holes for whistling. Murli is about 8 inches long, with a hole at the end and four holes on the body of the flute. This kind of flute produces a very enchanting sound. The Vamshi flute is about 15 inches long with nine holes on its body. Krishna used to play on these three flutes occasionally when they were needed. Krishna has a longer Vamshi when which is called Mahananda or Sammohini. When it is when it is still longer, it is called Akarshini. When it is even longer, it is called Anandini. The Anandini flute is very pleasing to the cowherd boys and technically named Vamshuli. These flutes were sometimes bedecked with jewels, and sometimes they were made up of marble, and sometimes of hollow bamboo. When the flute is made up of jewels, it is called Sammohini. When made up of gold, it is called Akarshini. Hari Hari Bol.
Krishna's buffalo horn. Krishna used the buffalo horn as a bugling instrument. This instrument was always highly polished and circled with gold bands, and on the middle there was a hole. Regarding these instruments, there is a metaphorical statement about a gopi named Taravali. It is said that Taravali was bitten by the most venomous snake of Krishna's flute. Then, in order to neutralize the poisonous effect, she drank the milk produced by the buffalo horn in the hand of Krishna. But instead of decreasing the poisonous effect, it increased it 1,000 times. The gopi was thus put into the most miserable poison condition. The attraction of Krishna's leg bells. A certain gopi asked, certain gopi once stated to her friend, "My dear friend, when I heard the sound of the leg bells of Sri Krishna, I immediately started to go out of the house to see him. But most regrettably, my superiors were present before me. Just as that time, I could not go out." Krishna's conch shell. Krishna's conch shell is known as Panchajanya. The Panchajanya conch is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna sounded it before the battle of Kurukshetra. It is said that when Lord Krishna blows on his transcendental conch shell, this, the wives of the demons become subject to the abortions, and the wives of the demigods become blessed with all auspiciousness. In this way, sound of Krishna's conch shell used to vibrate and circulate all over the world.
Krishna's footprints. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Akrura, who drove Krishna from Vrindavan to Mathura, saw the footprints of Krishna on the land of Vrindavan, his ecstatic love for Krishna increased so much that the hairs on his body stood up. His eyes became overflooded with tears, and in such ecstasy he jumped out of the chariot and fell down on the ground and began to chant, "How wonderful this is! How wonderful this is!" Similar feelings were expressed by the gopis when they were going to the bank of Yamuna and saw Krishna's footprints in the dust. When Krishna walked on the ground of Vrindavan, and the marks of his soul, flag, thunderbolt, fish, a rod of controlling elephants, and a lotus flower would be imprinted upon the dust of the land. The gopis became overwhelmed simply at seeing those marks on the ground. Krishna's places of pastimes. One devotee has exclaimed, "Oh, I have not as yet visited the wonderful places where the pastimes of the Lord were performed, but simply by hearing the name of Mathura, I have become overwhelmed with joy." Krishna's favorite plant, Tulsi. Lord Krishna is very fond of tulsi leaves and buds. Because tulsi beads are usually offered up to the lotus feet of Krishna, a devotee once prayed to the tulsi beads, to the tulsi buds, to give him some information about the wow, information about the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotee expected that the tulsi buds would know something about the glories of Lord Krishna's lotus feet.
Krishna's devotees. One may sometimes become overwhelmed with joy by seeing a devotee of the Lord. When Dhruva Maharaj saw two associates of Narayan approaching him, he immediately stood up of sincere respect and devotion and remained before them with folded hands. But because of his aesthetic love, he could hardly offer him a proper reception. There is a statement by the Gopi who addressed Sulabha, a friend of Krishna. My dear Sulabha, I know that Krishna is your friend and that you always enjoy smiling and joking with. The other day I saw you both standing together. You were keeping your hand upon Krishna's shoulder, and both of you were joyfully smiling. When I saw that, when I saw the two of you standing like that in the distance, my eyes at once became overflooded with tears. Special days for remembering Krishna. There are many statements about the festive days in connection with Krishna's different activities. One of these festive days is Janmashtami, the day of Krishna's birth. This Janmashtami day is the most opulent festival for the day of festival day for the devotees, and it is still observed with great pomp in every Hindu house in India. Sometimes even the devotees or other religious groups take advantage of this auspicious day and enjoy the performances of ceremony of Janmashtami. Ecstatic love for Krishna is also aroused on the day of Ekadashi, which are other festive days in connection with Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा। तो ये वाला चैप्टर भी 6 मिनट में तो हो ही जाएगा, तो हम 8:30 पे एंड कर देंगे फिर। Chapter 27, Symptoms of Ecstatic Love. The bodily symptoms manifested by a devotee in expressing ecstatic love for Krishna are called Anubhav. Practical examples of Anubhav are as follows: dancing, rolling on the ground, singing very loudly, stretching the body, crying loudly, yawning, breathing very heavily, neglecting the presence of others, drawling, laughing like a madman, wheeling the head, and belching. When there is an extraordinary excess of ecstatic love, with all these bodily symptoms manifested, one feels relieved transcendentally. These symptoms are divided into two parts. One is called Sita and the other is called Kshapana. When there is yawning, the symptoms are called Sita, and when there is dancing, they are called Kshipana. Dancing. While watching the Rasa dance performed by Lord Krishna and the gopis, Lord Shiva beheld the beautiful face of Krishna and immediately began to dance and beat upon his small dim drum. While Lord Shiva was dancing in ecstasy, his eldest son Ganesh joined him, rolling on the ground. In the third canto, first chapter, verse 32 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vidura inquires from Uddhava, "My dear friend, is Akrura in an auspicious condition? Not only is he a learned scholar and sinless, but he is also a devotee of Lord Krishna. He has such an ecstatic love for Krishna that I have seen him rolling upon Krishna's footprint in the dust as it is bereft of all sense. Similarly, when Gopi have gave a massage to Krishna, uh, message to Krishna that Radharani, because of her separation from him and because of her enchantment with the aroma of his flower garlands, was rolling on the ground, thereby bruising her soft body.
Singing loudly. One Gopi informed Krishna that when Srimati Radharani was singing about his glories, she enchanted all of her friends in such a way that they became stone-like and dull. At the same time, the nearby stones began to melt away in ecstatic love. When Narad Muni was chanting Hare Krishna mantra, he chanted so loudly that it was apprehended that Lord Nrsimha had appeared. Thus, all the demons began to flee in different directions, stretching the body. It is said that sometimes when Narada, the carrier of the Veena, sometimes sorry, remember his Lord Krishna is in great ecstasy. He begins to stretch his body so vigorously that his sacred thread gives away, crying loudly. One A gopi once said to Krishna, "My dear son of Nanda Maharaj, by the sound of your flute, Srimati Radharani has become full of lamentation and fear, and thus, with a faltering voice, she's crying like a kurari bird." It is described that by hearing the vibration of Krishna's flute, Lord Shiva becomes very puzzled and begins to cry so loudly that into the space that the demons became vanquished and the devotees became very overwhelmed with joy.
Yawning. It is said that when the full moon rises, the lotus petals became expanded. Similarly, when Krishna used to appear before Radharani, her face, which is compared to the lotus flower, would expand by her yawning. Breathing heavily. As far as breathing heavily is concerned, it is stated Lalita, one of the gopis, is just like Chataki bird, which only takes water falling directly from the rain cloud and not from any other source. In the statement, Krishna is compared to the dark cloud, and Lalita is compared to the Chataki bird, seeking only Krishna's company. The metaphor continues to say, as a heavy wind sometimes disperses a mighty cloud, so the heavy breath from Lalita's nostrils caused her to miss Krishna, who has disappeared by the time she recovered herself. Neglecting the presence of others. As far as neglecting the presence of others is concerned, the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices at Vrindavan left home as soon as they heard that Krishna was nearby. They left their homes without caring for their learned husbands. The husbands began to discuss this among themselves. How wonderful is this attraction for Krishna, that it has made these women leave us without any care. This is the influence of Krishna. Anyone who becomes attracted to Krishna can be relieved from the bondage of birth and death, which can be compared to the locked up homes that were neglected by the wives of Brahmanas. In the Padyavali, there is a statement by some devotees: we shall not care for any outsiders. It should deride us. We shall still not care for them. We shall simply enjoy the transcendental mellow of chanting Hare Krishna, and thus we shall roll on the ground and dance ecstatically. In this way, we shall eternally enjoy the transcendental bliss.
Drooling. As an example of the running down of saliva from the mouth, it is stated that sometimes when Narad Muni was chanting Hare Krishna mantra, he remained stunned for a while and saliva oozed from his mouth. Laughing like a madman. When a devotee laughs very loud like a madman, it is done out of extraordinary agitation of ecstatic love within the heart. Such mad laughing is an expression of the condition of the heart that is technically called attahas. When a devotee becomes affected with with the mental condition, his love is expressed through the lips. The laughing sounds coming one after another are compared to flowers falling in the creeper of devotion that grows within the heart of the devotee. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, devotional service to the Lord is compared to a creeper that rises up to the lotus feet of Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. Wheeling of the head. One of the gopis told her friend, "It appears that Lord Krishna, the enemy of the demon Agha, has released from his mouth a whirlwind which is acting on your head and is gradually proceeding to do the same on the other lotus-eyed gopis." Bleaching. Sometimes bleaching also becomes a symptom of aesthetic love for Krishna. There is evidence in this of this in Purnamasi's address to one crying associate of Radharani. My dear daughter, don't be worried because Srimati Radharani is belching. I am about to offer a remedial measure for these symptoms. Do not cry so loudly. This belching is not due to the indigestion. It is a sign of aesthetic love for Krishna. I shall arrange to cure this belching symptom immediately. Don't be worried. This statement by Purnamasi is evidence that aesthetic love for Krishna is sometimes manifested through belching, sometimes trembling of the whole body and hemorrhaging from some part of the body are also manifest in response to uh, response to ecstatic love of Krishna. But such symptoms are very rare, and therefore Srila Rupa Goswami does not discuss any further on this point.
Okay, so we'll continue this chapter from tomorrow. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining so actively. We have completed half part of Nectar of Devotion. As the name says, Nectar of Devotion. Okay, so we'll end the session. Vanchakalpatarubheshcha, Kripasindhubheva cha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for joining.